My phone rang at 6:41 a.m. The caller ID said Dad. He didn't ask how I was. He said, Grandpa died last night. We've already spoken to the bank. Everything goes to us. You're not included. I put the call on speaker and sat down at the kitchen table. My mother laughed in the background, not loud, just enough to be heard. Dad kept talking, explaining what I should do next, what I should not do, who I should not call. He used the past tense carefully, like he'd rehearsed it. I didn't interrupt. I nodded once and smiled. Across from me, my grandfather folded his hands and slid a sealed envelope toward me. The return address was his attorney's office. Another envelope followed, thicker, with tabs sticking out. Outside, a notification chimed on my phone. A bank alert I hadn't expected. Dad was still talking. He hadn't noticed the silence yet. I didn't move the phone from the table. I wanted the audio clean. Dad kept going like he was reading off a checklist. You don't need to come out here. There's nothing for you to handle. We're taking care of the arrangements. You were never really involved anyway, so let's not make this harder than it has to be. My mother laughed again, softer this time. It wasn't grief. It was the kind of laugh people do when they think they've closed a door and you're on the wrong side of it. I looked at my grandfather across the table. He was alive, in a flannel shirt, coffee steaming near his elbow, eyes clear. He didn't look angry. He looked prepared. Dad said, and listen. Don't call the bank. It's already been notified. Don't call the lawyer either. We've got his files. That last line made my grandfather's mouth tighten, just for a second. He reached over and tapped the screen of my phone once, a small motion that said, keep letting him talk. I said, okay. It was one word, and it changed the tone. Dad paused like he was waiting for a fight. When he didn't get one, he filled the space. I'm glad you understand. We'll send you something later, maybe a small amount for travel if you insist on coming to the service. But you need to know your place in this. He said, your place, like it was a family tradition. I didn't ask how he died. I didn't ask what hospital. I didn't ask what day the funeral was. If a person is lying, questions help them build. Silence makes them carry the weight alone. Another chime hit my phone. Not a text. A bank notification. The preview was just enough to read without unlocking it. Security alert. New device sign in attempt. My grandfather's eyes flicked to the screen. He didn't reach for it. He didn't need to. He nodded once, like he'd been expecting that exact wording. Dad said, if you try to contest anything, you'll just waste money you don't have. My mother said something then, not directly to me. She always thinks she's special. Dad said, sure. She's listening. I kept my voice neutral. I hear you. Dad's breathing changed. It got lighter, like relief. The more comfortable people get, the more careless they become. He said, good. Because we're already handling the transfer. The cabin, the accounts, everything. It's clean. It's done. He didn't say, after probate. He didn't say, once the death certificate is filed. He said, done. Like he thought the system was a switch he could flip. Across from me, my grandfather slid the sealed envelope closer. He didn't open it. He let me see the label, the name of his attorney, printed, not handwritten. Under it, a second line, revocation and restatement. It wasn't dramatic. It was just paper. That was the point. Dad said, we'll call you later with details. Don't do anything stupid. I waited until he ended the call. I didn't end it. I let him hang up first so the recording showed his decision to stop. When the line went dead, my kitchen went quiet except for the refrigerator. My grandfather exhaled and looked at me like I was an adult, not a grandkid. Now, he said. We move. I finally unlocked my phone. The bank alert expanded. New device sign in attempt from a location that wasn't mine or his. There was a timestamp, down to the minute. 6:43 a.m. 2 minutes after Dad said, we've already spoken to the bank. I opened the banking app. Another alert loaded behind it, attempted change, primary phone number. Declined, then another, attempted request, password reset. Pending verification. My grandfather nodded again. That's why I'm here, he said. Your house has better signal. And you're calmer than your father. He said it like it was a fact, not an insult. Where were you before this? I asked. At the cabin, he said. I left at 5. I didn't want them to see my truck there. I parked down the road and walked to yours. Your father thinks he knows my habits. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small notebook. The cover was worn like he'd had it for years. He opened it and showed me lines of dates and times. Not feelings. Not theories. A log. Your father has had access to things he shouldn't, he said. Not because he's clever. Because I once trusted him. I corrected that last week. I looked at the envelope again. This is the correction? It's part of it, he said. The other part is evidence. He tapped my phone. You recorded? I nodded. Good. Don't share it. Don't threaten them with it. We're not doing that. He stood up slowly and picked up his coffee like it was still just a morning. Call the attorney's office, he said. Not from your saved contacts. From the website. I want the timestamp of the call on your phone log. And put it on speaker when they answer. I did exactly that. I searched the law firm, verified the number, and called. The receptionist answered with a practiced voice. I gave my grandfather's name. There was a pause that lasted half a second too long. Then her tone shifted, subtle but real. One moment. My grandfather watched me, not the phone. A male voice came on. This is Mr. Harlan. My grandfather leaned in. It's me. Silence on the line, then a breath. Where are you? Safe, my grandfather said. They started early. I saw the alert, the attorney said. I'm already in the office. My stomach tightened at that. Not at panic. At confirmation. The attorney already had alerts set, which meant this wasn't new behavior. This was an anticipated pattern. My grandfather said, we're coming now. She's with me. The attorney didn't ask who she was. He didn't need to. Bring everything, he said. And do not go to the cabin first. My grandfather looked at me. Keys, he said. I grabbed my coat. While I moved, I took screenshots of every bank alert, the device sign-in, the attempted phone number change, the password reset request. Each one had a timestamp. Each one had the bank's language, paper over emotion. As we walked out, my phone buzzed again. A text from my mother. Don't embarrass yourself today. This isn't about you. No condolences. No details. Just a warning about my behavior. I didn't reply. We got into my car. Before I started it, my grandfather said, check your email. I opened it. There was a new message, flagged as important by my provider. Subject, notification of death, immediate action required. It wasn't from the bank. It was from an email address that looked like a bank, but wasn't. The domain was close, off by a letter. The body was simple. It asked me to click a link to confirm beneficiary status. My grandfather didn't touch the phone. Do not click, he said. I won't. That's not for you, he said. That's to see if you're panicking. If you click, it tells them you're awake and scared and easy to steer. I deleted it. Then I went into my trash folder and deleted it again. We drove toward town. The roads were still thin with morning traffic. The whole thing felt normal on the outside, which made it worse. Sunlight. Coffee breath. People going to work. And my parents, somewhere, telling the world my grandfather was dead. Halfway to the attorney's office, my grandfather's phone buzzed. He didn't look at it right away. He let it buzz twice, then picked it up and answered without saying hello. A man's voice came through, tinny through the speaker. Mr. Dawson? This is Craig. I'm at the place. The lock's different. My grandfather held my eyes, calm. He didn't react like a man hearing a stranger at his home. He reacted like a man hearing a prediction come true. Craig said, I got the guy with me. He says he can get it open, but he needs confirmation. My grandfather said, who told you to go there? Craig hesitated. Uncle said you were? You were gone. He said we needed to get papers before she did. She, my grandfather repeated, like he was testing the word. He looked at me when he said it. Craig lowered his voice. He said you left everything to her. That it wasn't right. My grandfather's face didn't change. His voice didn't rise. Craig, he said, step away from the door. Put the locksmith in your truck. And wait. Craig sounded confused. But, wait, my grandfather repeated. And do not touch anything else. Craig said, okay. But Uncle's calling me like crazy. Let him, my grandfather said. I'll handle it. He ended the call and looked forward through the windshield like he was watching the lane lines. I said, that was your nephew. He nodded. And he brought a locksmith. My hands tightened on the steering wheel, but I kept my voice steady. We should call the police. My grandfather didn't argue. We will, he said. But not as a fight. As a report with names, times, and an active situation. He unlocked his phone and opened his notebook app. He read out loud as he typed, like he was building a record, 6:41 a.m. Your father calls. Claims death. Exclusion. Mentions bank. Mentions lawyer. 6:43 a.m. Bank alerts begin. 7:18 a.m. Craig at cabin with locksmith. He looked at me. When we call, he said, we speak like we're giving information. Not asking permission. I nodded. We pulled into a gas station lot just long enough for me to call the non-emergency line. Then switch when the dispatcher heard active attempted entry. I gave the address. I gave Craig's name. I gave the description of the locksmith's vehicle based on what Craig had said. The dispatcher asked, are you the homeowner? My grandfather leaned in. I am, he said into my phone, steady and clear. And I am alive. There was a pause on the line, then her tone changed. Okay, sir. Officers are being sent now. Stay on the line. My grandfather's eyes stayed on mine. And then my phone rang again. Dad. I didn't answer. I let it ring. I let it create a missed call timestamp. My grandfather said quietly. Now he knows the cabin didn't open. He watched the screen like it was another document. Dad called again immediately. I still didn't answer. A third time, then a text came through from Dad. All caps, no punctuation. Where are you? Grandfather nodded once. Like he'd been waiting for that exact. I didn't answer Dad's question right away. I let the silence stretch just long enough for him to hear his own breathing. What did you do? He repeated, slower this time. Because Craig isn't answering me, and I just got a call I don't recognize. My grandfather leaned closer to the phone. He didn't raise his voice. You sent people to my cabin, he said. You told them I was dead. There was a sound on the line like a chair scraping. My mother spoke first. That's not funny. It's not a joke, my grandfather said. It's a statement. Dad laughed once, sharp. You don't even know what you're talking about. You're confused. That's why we were trying to help. The word confused landed the way it was meant to. Not as concern. As preparation. My grandfather nodded at me. I tapped the screen to lock the call recording, making sure it's saved. Then I unlocked it again and let the call continue. Every interruption breaks continuity. Continuity is what turns audio into evidence. Dad said, you're not safe right now. You need supervision. We're already filing paperwork. What paperwork? My grandfather asked. There it was. The opening, emergency guardianship, Dad said. Temporary. Just until things settle. Filed where? My grandfather asked. With the court, Dad said. We have a lawyer. My grandfather didn't argue. He didn't deny needing help. He didn't say anything that sounded defensive. He let Dad fill in details. Which court? My grandfather asked. Dad hesitated. County. Which county? Another pause. Longer this time. Ours. My grandfather nodded. He glanced at the clock on my dashboard and then at me. I wrote the time down on my notes app. Do you know what day it is? Dad asked suddenly, changing tactics. Because you've been off lately. My grandfather answered calmly. It's Tuesday, February 12th. It's 7:36 a.m. I'm in my granddaughter's car on Maple and 3rd. We're headed to my attorney's office. Silence, then my mother spoke, her voice tight. Why would you do that? After everything we've done for you. You told people I was dead, my grandfather said. That changes the order of things. Dad cut in. You don't get to decide that. We're your family. You were, my grandfather said. Until you tried to move assets while I was breathing. I watched my speed. I didn't want a ticket. There's no such thing as too careful when you're building a record, Dad said. You don't understand how this works. My grandfather said, then explain it. Dad took the bait. When someone declines, when they can't manage, I can manage, my grandfather said. That's not what the form says. Dad snapped, then stopped. He'd said too much. He knew it as soon as it came out. What form? My grandfather asked. Dad's breathing got louder. I'm done with this call. Stay on, my grandfather said. The officers are already on the way to the cabin. My mother gasped. Not loud. Real fear. What officers? Dad swore under his breath. You called the police? I reported a break-in attempt, my grandfather said. With names. The line went quiet for a few seconds. Then Dad said, this is a misunderstanding. That's not how misunderstandings work, my grandfather said. You told a bank I was dead. You sent a locksmith. You filed paperwork. You don't know that, Dad said. I know the time stamps, my grandfather said. Dad hung up. I didn't chase the call. I let it end. Then I saved the recording and backed it up to my cloud storage. Tagging it with the date and a short description. Call with Father Ree, false death plus guardianship claim. We pulled into the parking garage under the attorney's building. My grandfather took his time getting out of the car. He straightened his jacket. He didn't rush. Panic makes people sloppy. He told me that once, years ago, when I was upset about something smaller. It applied now more than ever. Inside the building, the elevator felt slow. I watched the floor numbers tick up. When the doors opened, Mr. Harlan was waiting in the hall like he'd been pacing. He didn't shake hands. He didn't smile. He looked at my grandfather and said, they filed at 7:02. My stomach dropped. Emergency petition, he continued. Claiming cognitive decline. They attached a statement from your father and your mother. No medical evaluation. No exam. Just affidavits. My grandfather nodded. As expected. Mr. Harlan turned to me. Did you record the call? Yes. And the bank alerts? Yes. Good, he said. Come in. His office was quiet in the way offices are when things are serious. Files stacked neatly. No personal clutter. We sat. He didn't offer coffee. They also tried to submit a death notice to the bank, he said, pulling up a screen and turning it so we could see. The bank flagged it because of the verification protocol we put in place last year. He looked at my grandfather. They used your son's old access credentials. My grandfather didn't flinch. I never removed them, he said. I just restricted what they could do. Mr. Harlan nodded. Which is why we have logs. He clicked again. A list of attempts populated the screen. Timestamps. IP addresses. Failed verifications. Each line was boring. Each line was devastating. They also sent an email, I said. A phishing attempt. Looked like the bank. Mr. Harlan didn't look surprised. Forward it to me, he said. Do not interact with it further. My grandfather slid the sealed envelope across the desk. Mr. Harlan opened it carefully. Inside were documents I didn't fully understand at first glance, but I recognized the tone. Revocation. Replacement. Names crossed out. New names inserted. Dates. Signatures. This revokes your son's power of attorney, Mr. Harlan said. Effective immediately. It also clarifies beneficiaries and adds an attestation of capacity. He looked at my grandfather. We'll file this now. Do it, my grandfather said. And notify the court. Mr. Harlan picked up the phone on his desk and dialed without hesitation. I watched him speak to someone I couldn't hear. His posture changed slightly as the conversation went on. Less neutral. More firm. Yes, he said. He's here. I can put him on speaker. He did. A clerk's voice came through, polite but cautious. This is regarding the emergency guardianship petition filed this morning, she said. Mr. Harlan said, the respondent is present and competent. We're submitting a revocation of prior authority and evidence of attempted fraud. There was a pause. Papers shuffling. Please send what you have, the clerk said. And advise law enforcement if there is an active attempt to access property. There is, Mr. Harlan said. Officers are already en route. When the call ended, my grandfather finally leaned back in his chair. They didn't wait, he said. They never do, Mr. Harlan replied. That's why this works. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Craig. The police are here. They're asking questions. Uncle isn't answering. What do I do? I showed it to my grandfather. Do not respond, he said. Let the officers instruct him. Another notification came in. This time, from the bank, account action frozen pending review. I felt my shoulders loosen without realizing they'd been tight. Mr. Harlan looked at the screen and nodded. That's the bank's fraud protocol. No one moves anything until this is resolved. What happens now? I asked. Now, he said, we document. He handed me a legal pad. Write down everything you remember from the call. Exact words. Tone. Timing. Don't summarize. Be literal. I did as I was told. Word for word. Including my mother's laugh. Including Dad's phrasing. Including the moment he said the form. While I wrote, Mr. Harlan stepped out to make another call. When he came back, his face was set. The deputies at the cabin found the locksmith's invoice, he said. Prepaid. In your father's name. My grandfather closed his eyes for a moment, not in pain, but in acknowledgement. They also recovered draft court orders from Craig's truck, Mr. Harlan continued. Unsigned. But filled out. I stopped writing and looked up. What kind of orders? I asked. Guardianship appointment, he said. And a request to restrict you, he added, looking at me, from contact. I felt something cold settle in my chest, but I didn't speak. My grandfather did. They named her as a manipulator, he said, not a question. Mr. Harlan nodded. They did. My grandfather opened his eyes and looked at me. This is why we stayed quiet, he said. Now it's on paper. At that moment, my phone rang again. Not Dad this time, unknown number. Mr. Harlan gestured for me to answer. I put it on speaker. This is Deputy Lewis, a man said. We're at the cabin with your cousin and the locksmith. We've reviewed some documents found on site. We need to ask a few questions. My grandfather leaned forward, calm as ever. I'm at my attorney's office, he said. Alive. And available. There was a brief pause on the line. Yes, sir, the deputy said. That changes things. Deputy Lewis asked for the address. Mr. Harlan gave it to him without hesitation and added his name and bar number. That mattered. You could hear it in the way the deputy's voice steadied after that. We're going to document everything on site, the deputy said. We've separated your cousin from the locksmith. No one's being detained at the moment. That's appropriate, Mr. Harlan said. Please preserve anything you find. Paperwork included. We will, the deputy replied. We'll also need copies of any recordings or alerts you have. You'll get them, Mr. Harlan said. In sequence. The call ended. No drama. No threats. Just processed. I kept writing on the legal pad until my hand cramped. Dates. Words. Pauses. The Exact phrasing my father used when he said, temporary. The way my mother laughed when she thought the call was over. Memory turns unreliable when it's emotional. Notes don't. Mr. Harlan slid a folder toward me. We're assembling a packet, he said. Bank logs, call recordings, your notes, and the revocation. This goes to the court clerk and to the bank's fraud unit. What about the emergency petition? I asked. He tapped his screen. We filed an objection and a notice of appearance. The clerk has flagged the case. Nothing moves without a hearing. My grandfather nodded. And the death notice? Withdrawn, Mr. Harlan said. The bank invalidated it. They also flagged your son's account access for review. He didn't say my father's name. He didn't need to. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a voicemail notification. I didn't listen to it yet. I saved it. Voicemails preserve tone in a way transcripts don't. Another alert came in, this one from my email provider. We blocked a sign-in attempt to your account, location data attached. Same region as my parents' house. Mr. Harlan held up a hand. Screenshot that. Then forward it to me. I did. I labeled it with the time and source. My grandfather stood and walked to the window. He looked down at the street, hands behind his back. They always think the first move is the hardest, he said. It's not. It's the second. That's when they rush. He was right. My phone rang again. Dad. I didn't answer. Then another call came in from a number I didn't recognize. I let that one go to voicemail too. Mr. Harlan checked his watch. The court clerk will call shortly, he said. When she does, answer on speaker. We didn't wait long. The call came through with a blocked number. I answered and put it on speaker. This is the clerk's office, a woman said. We received an emergency guardianship petition this morning. We also received an objection and additional filings. Yes, Mr. Harlan said. We're present with the respondent. Is the respondent available to answer a few verification questions? She asked. My grandfather stepped closer to the phone. I am. She asked his full name. Date of birth. Address. He answered without hesitation. She asked him what day it was and where he was. He answered again, clearly. Have you authorized your son to act on your behalf today? She asked. No, he said. I revoked that authority last week. There was a pause as she typed. Did you authorize anyone to declare you deceased? She asked. No, he said. Another pause. Thank you, she said. The petition will be marked contested. No temporary order will issue without a hearing. We will notify all parties. She ended the call. I exhaled slowly. I hadn't realized I'd been holding my breath. Mr. Harlan sat back down. That takes the urgency out of their play, he said. Now they have to explain themselves. My grandfather returned to his chair. He looked tired for the first time that morning, not physically, but in the way someone looks when a truth finally has witnesses. My phone buzzed again. A text from my mother, you are tearing this family apart. I didn't reply. A second text followed almost immediately, your father is trying to protect his dad. Why are you doing this? Mr. Harlan glanced at the screen and then away. Do not respond, he said. Silence keeps the narrative intact. Another notification came in. This time, a call from the bank's fraud unit. I answered and put it on speaker. This is Elaine with the bank, a calm voice said. We detected multiple unauthorized attempts related to Mr. Dawson's accounts. We have temporarily frozen access. Yes, Mr. Harlan said. We're aware. We also received a death notice submission, Elaine continued. It did not pass verification. We need to confirm Mr. Dawson's status. My grandfather leaned in. I am alive, he said. There was a brief pause, then a soft exhale. Thank you, sir, Elaine said. We'll document that. We'll also be escalating the matter to our legal department due to the nature of the attempts. Please do, Mr. Harlan said. We'll provide supporting documentation. Elaine thanked us and ended the call. The room felt quieter after that. Like something heavy had settled into place. Now, Mr. Harlan said. We wait for law enforcement's report. We didn't wait long. Deputy Lewis called back within the hour. I answered and put him on speaker. We've completed our initial review, he said. The locksmith confirmed he was hired under the belief the homeowner was deceased. He provided an invoice and text messages from your cousin. What about the documents? Mr. Harlan asked. We recovered printed draft filings, the deputy said. Emergency guardianship forms, partially completed. They list your son as petitioner. My grandfather closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them. Are there charges? He asked. At this stage, the deputy said, we're documenting attempted unlawful entry and potential fraud. We're forwarding everything to the district attorney for review. That's appropriate, Mr. Harlan said. The deputy hesitated. There's one more thing, he said. Your son arrived while we were on site. My stomach tightened. He didn't approach the cabin, the deputy continued. He stayed in his vehicle. But he attempted to speak to officers and claimed you were mentally incompetent. My grandfather didn't react. Did he provide proof? He asked. No, sir, the deputy said. He was advised not to interfere with an active investigation. Thank you, my grandfather said. Please include that in your report. After the call ended, my phone lit up with missed calls. Dad. Dad again. Then a voicemail. Harlan nodded. You can listen to it, he said. But don't respond. I played the voicemail on speaker. Dad's voice was tight, controlled, trying to sound reasonable. You don't understand what you're doing. This is going to look bad for you. Call me back. He didn't threaten. He implied. I saved the voicemail and labeled it. My grandfather reached into his coat pocket and pulled out another envelope. This one was thinner. What's that? I asked. A letter, he said. For the bank. For the court. And for my son. He slid it across the desk to Mr. Harlan. Harlan read it silently. When he finished, he nodded once. This clarifies intent, he said. And capacity. My grandfather looked at me. I didn't want you involved in this, he said. But they brought you in. I know, I said. He rested his hand on the table, steady. You did exactly what you were supposed to do. You didn't argue. You didn't chase. You let them show who they are. Outside the office, the afternoon light had shifted. Time had passed without feeling like it had. Harlan stood. The next step is the hearing, he said. Your son will have to explain the death notice, the locksmith, the draft filings, and the access attempts. And if he can't, I asked. Harlan didn't answer right away. He gathered the folders, aligning the edges, then the record will, he said. My phone buzzed one last time. A text from my father, shorter than the rest. Please. I didn't reply. I locked the screen and set the phone face down on the table, exactly where it had been that morning when the call first came in. The hearing wasn't scheduled immediately. That was the point. Emergency filings lose their power once the emergency evaporates, and this one had evaporated on record. For the next 2 days, nothing dramatic happened. That mattered more than anything. No arrests. No confrontations. Just paperwork moving where it was supposed to move. The bank sent written confirmation that all accounts remained frozen pending review. The fraud unit requested certified copies of the recordings and logs. Mr. Harlan transmitted everything through their secure portal and received confirmation receipts with reference numbers. I saved screenshots of those too. My grandfather stayed with me. He didn't return to the cabin. Not yet. The deputies advised against it until their report was finalized. He agreed without argument. On the third morning, a courier delivered a thick envelope from the court to my parents' address. I knew because my mother called the moment she opened it. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail this time. Her voice was different. Lower. Careful, this has gone too far, she said. Your father is being accused of things he didn't do. People are misunderstanding. Misunderstandings don't come with timestamps. Later that afternoon, Mr. Harlan called. The court has dismissed the emergency petition, he said. Without prejudice, but with notes. What kind of notes? I asked. He paused. The kind that make refiling difficult. That night, the district attorney's office contacted Mr. Harlan requesting additional documentation. Not questions. Documentation. They already had the sheriff's report from the cabin, including photographs of the locksmith's tools, copies of the draft guardianship orders, and body camera footage of my father speaking to officers while claiming authority he didn't have. They also had Craig's statement. Craig didn't testify out of loyalty. He testified out of self-preservation. That was enough. A week later, my grandfather returned to the cabin with a deputy present. Nothing was missing. Nothing had been touched. The locks were intact. The deputy handed my grandfather a card. If they show up again, he said, call. They won't, my grandfather replied. He wasn't being optimistic. He was being accurate. The bank unfroze the accounts in stages. First my grandfather's personal checking. Then the trust account. My father's access was formally revoked and flagged. The bank sent a letter stating that any future attempts would be treated as intentional fraud. That letter went into a file. The hearing that followed wasn't theatrical. It rarely is. My father sat at one table with an attorney who looked tired. My grandfather sat with Mr. Harlan, posture straight, hands folded. I sat behind him, silent. The judge didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She asked my father why he attempted to file a death notice without a certificate. He gave an answer that wandered. She asked him why he hired a locksmith. He said he was trying to secure documents. She asked him why draft guardianship forms were found in his nephew's truck. He said he didn't know how they got there. The judge listened. Then she looked at the timeline Mr. Harlan submitted, dates, times, IP logs, call transcripts, bank alerts. She didn't accuse. She summarized. At minimum, she said, this court finds a reckless misuse of process. At worst, this appears to be a coordinated attempt to deprive a living individual of property and autonomy. She denied any future guardianship filings without medical evidence and ordered that any contact regarding my grandfather's finances be routed through counsel. She didn't say my father's name again after that outside the courtroom. My father didn't approach us. He stood with his attorney and stared at the floor. My mother looked at me like she wanted to speak, then thought better of it. We left without saying goodbye. Life didn't reset after that. It narrowed. My parents stopped calling. When they did reach out weeks later, it was through careful, neutral emails. No accusations. No instructions. Just updates about holidays, phrased like memos. My grandfather revised his estate plan again, slowly, deliberately. He didn't rush. He added no punishments. He simply clarified intent. I wasn't added suddenly. I already was. One evening, weeks later, we sat at the same kitchen table where the call had come in. The same spot. Same light. My phone lay face down between us. My grandfather drank his coffee and said, "They thought noise would move things faster. They thought I'd panic," I said. He nodded. "They needed you to." Outside, the neighborhood was quiet. Cars passed. Dogs barked. Ordinary life, continuing without regard for schemes or signatures. My phone buzzed once. A notification from the bank confirming the final review was complete. Case closed. I turned the phone over, looked at the screen, then set it back down. Nothing else needed to be said. The truth had already done the work.